Why do so many Muslim-majority nations, rich in natural resources and positioned at the crossroads of global trade, continue to face persistent instability and conflict? Despite their wealth in oil, gas, and minerals, and their strategic locations connecting continents, these countries often struggle to achieve lasting peace and prosperity. The answer is not rooted in religion or culture, but in the complex mechanics of power, both within these nations and in their interactions with the wider world. Political systems, historical legacies, and external pressures all play a role in shaping their destinies. Many of these nations find themselves entangled in the ambitions of global powers. For outside actors, it is often more convenient to deal with fragmented, unstable states than to face strong, unified, and independent countries that could challenge their interests or assert their own agendas. Their geography and abundant resources make them central to global, economic, and political interests. Yet paradoxically, this very importance often prevents them from becoming the main players in their own stories. Instead, their sovereignty and future are frequently shaped by the strategic calculations of outsiders, nations and organizations that prefer predictable, dependent partners over powerful, self-reliant rivals who might disrupt the status quo. This dynamic is not the result of a single conspiracy, but rather a systemic reality. Divided and dependent nations are easier to influence and control, whether through economic aid, military support, or diplomatic pressure. The cycle of dependency is reinforced by both internal divisions and external interventions. To truly understand why so many nations with immense potential remain trapped in cycles of instability, we must look beyond surface explanations and recognize the deeper framework of power, influence, and dependency that shapes their realities today. The strategic value of Muslim-majority countries is both a blessing and a curse. Their unique geography places them at the crossroads of continents, making them a bridge between east and west, north and south. This location has shaped their history for centuries, drawing traders, conquerors, and empires to their lands. Today, it continues to define their role on the world stage. Their oil and gas reserves are vital to the world's largest economies, making them perpetual targets for foreign influence. The sheer scale of these resources means that global markets are deeply intertwined with the stability of this region. Energy security for much of the world depends on uninterrupted access to these supplies, raising the stakes for everyone involved. Control over key maritime choke points, like the Suez Canal and Strait of Hormuz, gives these nations leverage, but also invites constant intervention. These narrow passages are lifelines for global trade, especially for oil and gas shipments. Any disruption here can send shockwaves through international markets, making these waterways some of the most heavily monitored and contested in the world. Foreign navies and military bases are not there to protect local sovereignty, but to guarantee the flow of resources and trade for global powers. The presence of these forces is a constant reminder that the region's wealth is both a prize and a vulnerability, drawing in outside interests who seek to shape outcomes in their favor. Outsiders prefer governments that are stable, but only if they remain compliant and dependent. True autonomy is often discouraged, as it could disrupt the delicate balance that keeps resources flowing outward and influence flowing inward. This dynamic creates a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and dependencies. True independence, nationalizing resources or closing bases, would threaten global interests and provoke swift pushback. Attempts to assert sovereignty are often met with economic pressure, political isolation, or even military intervention, making self-determination a risky proposition. The result is a cycle of managed instability, where foreign intervention is the norm, not the exception. Local populations bear the brunt of this instability, facing uncertainty and upheaval as outside powers compete for control. Recent events from Iraq to Gaza show how these regions remain arenas for great power competition, with local nations often sidelined. The struggle for resources and influence continues to shape the destinies of millions, making the quest for genuine independence more urgent and more challenging than ever. The resource curse haunts many Muslim nations. Vast oil and gas wealth should bring prosperity, but often fuels corruption and authoritarianism. Ruling elites, flush with resource revenues, have little incentive to be accountable to their people, eroding the social contract. Political power becomes a fight for control over wealth, not for public good, leading to instability and economic stagnation. Foreign powers exploit this, using trade, loans and arms to deepen dependency and secure compliance. Attempts at reform are rare, as elites prefer the status quo that secures their power. The cycle is hard to break. Enough wealth to prevent collapse, but not enough to foster real development. Even ambitious projects like Saudi Vision 2030 remain tied to energy exports, keeping these nations aligned with global consumers. Many Muslim countries were born from colonial borders that ignored ethnic, tribal and sectarian realities, sowing seeds of division that persist to this day. These lines, drawn with little regard for the people living there, forced together communities with long histories of rivalry, and split apart those who once lived side by side. The legacy of these artificial borders is a patchwork of nations struggling to find unity amid deep-rooted differences. External powers have long exploited these divisions, backing rival groups to keep nations weak and dependent. By supporting one faction over another, they create a cycle of mistrust and instability, ensuring that local leaders are often forced to look outward for support rather than inward for reconciliation. Divide-and-rule tactics, funding militias, supporting factions, amplifying sectarianism, ensure no single group can unify the country. These strategies are not new. They are a continuation of colonial policies, adapted for modern geopolitics, and they keep societies in a constant state of tension and uncertainty. Iran's internal diversity, for example, is seen by neighbors and global powers as an opportunity for influence, not stability. Ethnic and religious minorities become pawns in a larger game, as outside actors seek to manipulate internal dynamics for their own benefit. Similar patterns play out in Iraq and Syria, where outside actors fuel internal conflicts to advance their own agendas. The result is a cycle of violence and intervention, with ordinary people caught in the crossfire and national identities left in flux. The result is managed chaos. Enough conflict to prevent strong sovereign states, but not enough to disrupt global interests. This delicate balance allows foreign powers to maintain influence while avoiding the costs of outright war or collapse. These divisions are carefully maintained, keeping nations fractured and pliable. Political leaders, both local and foreign, often have little incentive to resolve these tensions, as division serves their interests. True unity is a threat to those who benefit from the status quo. Only by overcoming these manufactured divisions can nations hope to reclaim their sovereignty and build a more stable, just future for all their people. Military dependency is a cornerstone of weakness for many Muslim nations. Lacking domestic arms industries, they rely on foreign suppliers for advanced weaponry, locking themselves into long-term dependency. Arms deals come with strings, maintenance, training, and political alignment, limiting independent action. Hosting foreign bases further erodes sovereignty, as these outposts serve the interests of the supplier, not the host. Security guarantees from powers like the US may deter threats, but they also constrain national policy. Recent realignments, like Pakistan's shift toward the US and Gulf allies, show how military ties follow economic pressures. True strength requires self-reliance. As long as security is imported, independence remains elusive. Military dependency is not just about hardware, it's about who really calls the shots. Economic dependency is perhaps the most effective tool for keeping nations weak. Many Muslim-majority countries export raw materials and import finished goods, trapping them in unfavorable trade cycles. A lack of diversification makes them vulnerable to price shocks, forcing them to seek loans from powerful states or institutions. These loans come with conditions: privatization, spending cuts, market reforms that deepen dependency and limit sovereignty. Financial leverage allows creditors to dictate policy, as seen pivot away from China under economic duress. The system perpetuates itself, elites benefit, while the broader population remains stagnant. Breaking free requires investing in education, fighting corruption, and building a diversified economy, far harder than signing the next loan. Managed instability is not destiny. Real change is possible, but it demands a radical shift. Building strong, accountable institutions is the first step. Independent courts, professional civil service, and responsive politics. Corruption must be rooted out, or any progress will be lost. Investing in human capital, education, science, technology, is the only way to escape dependency. Regional cooperation, based on shared interests rather than old divisions, can amplify strength and reduce outside interference. The challenges are systemic, not religious. Power, not faith, shapes these realities. Change won't come from blaming outsiders, but from building resilient institutions and an educated populace. True sovereignty is measured not by resources or weapons, but by the ability to stand independently in a complex world.